Good morning, everyone. My name is Kristyn Wong-Tam, the Member of Provincial Parliament for Toronto Centre, as well as the official opposition critic for the Ministry of the Attorney General and 2S LGBT issues. Joining me in the media studio today at Queen's Park is the Ontario NDP leader, Marit Stiles, and a number of other esteemed guests who are coming in from out of town, who are Toronto residents and really supporters from Ontario. They are prominent drag artists. You've probably seen them on TV, but certainly you are going to be hearing from them right now and very shortly. Scarlett Bobo, Crystal Quartz, Cher, Rachel Shear, Niplez Cage, Liz J, Mark Henderson, representatives of the Church and Wellesley Village BIA, Friends of Ruby, and many other families and friends and supporters who've all joined us in the media studio. They're here for largely one reason, and to send a very important message to the Premier and the Conservative government. The topic that brings us here is deadly serious. The rise of hate and violence facing the 2S LGBTQI+ communities, including the drag artists, happening across Ontario and right in the nation, has been alarming. There's been a dramatic spike in violence and discrimination targeting the 2S LGBT community, a rise of over 60% between 2019 and 2021, all recorded by Statistics Canada. This information is also affirmed in anecdotal conversations I've had with so many people from Toronto to Thunder Bay. Literally everywhere in between, we are seeing community members rally, but also they are fearful of what happens next if we don't have protection from the government and law enforcement to take care of them. What we do know is that hate crimes are oftentimes underreported. And even though it is underreported, what I've heard from our drag communities as well as their audiences, it has been alarming. I'm just going to list a few of the cities that we know and municipalities that we are aware of where protests anti-2S LGBT extremists have taken place. They've been targeted in Hamilton, Welland, Fort Erie, Guelph, Kingston, Kitchener, Gravenhurst, Brockville, Peel Region, Elora, Lambton, Sarnia, Sudbury, Sault Ste. Marie, North Bay, Pembroke, Pickering, Orillia, Whitby, Dryden, Ottawa, Woodstock, Peterborough, and right here in Ontario's capital, Toronto, the biggest city. For months now, as the 2S LGBT critic, I have been repeatedly asking the Ford Conservatives for their plan on what are they going to do to keep this community safe. I've asked them public questions during question period. I've spoken to the ministers in private, trying to urge them to take real action because we need real action to keep our community safe. Their replies have been consistently vague, unfocused, and ultimately unhelpful. The drag communities are done waiting for this government to take real action in effective ways, and so is the Ontario NDP. This is why this afternoon I'll be introducing a new private members bill, co-sponsored by the other NDP Queer Caucus members, MPPs Terence Kernahan, Lise Bourgeois, and Jill Andrews. We are joined here also with NDP MPP Caucus members Sarah Jama as well as Chris Glover. This new legislation in Ontario is designed to keep the 2S LGBT community safe. Drag artists, their audiences, the business, and the facilities that host those drag performances have been put at risk. And unless we put forward a strategy to protect them, Ontario's social, economic, and cultural richness is under attack. We have to protect that. The proposed legislation does two things, and I will go through them. Firstly, it enables the Attorney General to create a 2S LGBTQI+ community safety zone to prohibit within 100 meters of the property any homophobic, transphobic act of intimidation, threat, offensive threats, offensive remarks, protest, disturbance, and distribution of hate propaganda within the meaning of the criminal code. It also comes with it a penalty of $25,000 if prosecuted successfully. Secondly, the Act creates an Ontario 2S LGBTQI+ Safety Advisory Committee to provide recommendations to the provincial government on how to improve safety for our community and to prevent further hate. We need to be able to have the government publish an annual report and an update on the progress of this work. It is that critically important. Our community is scared, but we're not going to take it lying down. We're going to stand up and rise up where we can to fight back, as we have to. Everything is on the line, and we need government action to be much more visible, much louder. Doing nothing, saying nothing is simply not good enough. This private member's bill is supported by many prominent drag artists, not just in Canada, but I suspect that it will be supported by drag artists and the LGBT community around the world in short order. Everyone is looking for solutions. I'm really proud to have the support of the Church and Wellesley Village BIA, who is also here today to lend their support to the importance of such a bill. The Ontario NDP has now done the work to create this plan to keep the 2S LGBTQI+ community safe, and we're asking the Conservative government to just adopt it. Let's get to work right away. If they adopt our private members bill, Ontario will be the best, to the best of my knowledge, the first jurisdiction in the world to have such a law. And we know that this could be helping many other communities. I would now like to invite Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles to share her thoughts on the dangerous climate facing the community and why she's here to support the community and the bill. Following our leader, the next two speakers are Crystal Quartz and Scarlett Bobo, two incredibly talented and prominent drag artists in Canada and well known around North America. They will share firsthand their experience of what it's been like to face that targeted hateful discrimination and harassment, the impact that it has had on their own lives, the lives of their family, their loved ones, and the communities and the business that are trying to support them. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristyn, and good morning, everybody. I'm Marit Stiles. I'm the leader of Ontario's NDP and His Majesty's Official Opposition, and I'm really proud to be here today. I want to thank everyone for coming out today to support Ontario's drag and queer community in their effort to stand up against any violence threat to their safety. Ontario has a very rich history of celebrating drag queen and kings and the artistry and talent that they bring to the stage. Over the years, the popularity of drag performance has grown steadily. But unfortunately, especially in the past few months, anti-queer and anti-trans hate has also grown steadily. We've seen an uptick in harassment and violent threats against drag artists, including right here in Ontario. The shooting late last year at the LGBTQ club in Colorado was a heinous hate crime in a continuing trend of hate and violence directed towards 2S LGBTQ plus communities across North America. We know that hate crimes based on sexual orientation and gender identity are at their highest level in many years. Drag events, including family-focused ones, have been targets of hate and anti-queer protests imported from the U.S., and we're seeing this trend, as MPP Wong-Tam mentioned, all across this province. In fact, I'll just mention quickly that it's really such a joy and a pleasure and an honor to be joined by so many of our fantastic drag artists here at Queen's Park today. And it was just a few months ago that MPP Wong-Tam and I were in Hamilton when we heard that Crystal Quartz was going to be performing there and that there was going to be one of these hateful protests. So we decided to go and show our support and be there with so many others. And that's what really struck me, was how many people came to actually show their support, to stand up against the hate. And it was really a pleasure to have that, at that moment, a chance to actually meet Crystal Quartz. And I'm just so happy that she's here today. But the sad truth is that this government has done nothing to recognize the growing violence against the queer community, and even less to help stop it. New Democrats have been calling on Ford to act for months, but the Premier hasn't lifted a finger. As MPP Wong-Tam said, this private members bill is going to allow the Attorney General to designate addresses in Ontario as 2S LGBTQI+ community safety zones for a specified period of time. During this time, a safety zone is in effect. Any anti-LGBTQ harassment, intimidation, hate speech within 100 meters of the designated address could receive a provincial fine of up to $25,000. Drag queens, kings, and the entire community deserve to feel safe everywhere in Ontario today, and this private members bill will take immediate action to win more safety for these Ontarians. It is the government's responsibility to protect each and every person in this province from harm and to take adequate measures in the face of increased risk. And right now, their inaction is sending a loud and clear message that they are out of touch, or worse, that they just do not care. Drag artists deserve safety, dignity, and the right to earn a living, and the Ontario NDP stands as allies with them to protect them from harm and also make this province an inclusive place for them to thrive. And with that, I'm really pleased to introduce and invite up here Kristyn Quartz.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Kristyn Quartz and I'm a full-time entertainer based in Guelph, Ontario. I travel across Ontario weekly creating safe and inclusive spaces. I've done shows in Guelph, Kitchener, Waterloo, London, Milton, Brantford, Burlington, Hamilton, Toronto, North York, Markham, King City, Niagara Falls, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Cambridge, Napanee, and Aurelia, just to name a few. Although I have been doing drag for 18 years, I started this business during the pandemic after losing my job. And before I knew it, I had 260,000 followers on TikTok and all my shows were selling out. These shows bring out crowds of people, usually during times that these establishments would not normally be busy. Oh, sorry, there's a lot today for me. In these safe and inclusive spaces, simply by being my joyful and loving self, it creates environments which allows others to feel the freedom to be themselves. It does not mean that you have to be part of the LGBTQ plus community. In fact, 90% of my clientele are cisgendered heterosexual females. I am a multifaceted performer that gears each performance to the crowd and setting. Mostly these events are 19 plus with the occasional all ages. I was asked by parents and owners of big corporations to create these all ages shows that can be held in their family restaurants. These events were hits for all kinds of families. I began receiving beautiful emails, messages, and letters from the parents thanking me for the work that I was doing and that their children, it was all their children could talk about for the weeks leading after. Whew. In October of 2022, all of this was interrupted by a group of anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ plus individuals. I received hundreds of nasty emails, messages, and even had my Instagram mass reported till I lost my account at 10,000 followers. They then started showing up to all of my events, screaming at parents and myself, saying they were groomers, pedophiles, and a bunch of other homophobic slurs to make everyone there feel unsafe to attend. These acts of intimidation now made our safe spaces feel unsafe. Unfortunately, all of these venues decided to not rebook, leaving a huge loss of revenue for me and these businesses. And to be honest, I don't blame them. It was very scary for everyone involved as they just came to have a good time. You know, what I do is not much different than what you would see at a theater or going to your favorite pop artist in concert. The only difference is that I was assigned male at birth. Although you may find me sexy at times, at these all ages events, there is nothing sexual as I cater to my audiences. What these groups of individuals have done is ruin so much hard work in creating safe spaces across Ontario and leaving me to almost start from scratch, all because they feel the need to tell other parents what to do for their children. You do not see these same individuals doing anything else to help the children. This is strictly an anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ plus hatred. Growing up, I never got to see anyone like me, so I'll leave you with this. Be the change in the world you want to see. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Well, I bet you didn't think it would take a drag queen to throw in a lash and sashay to Queen's Park to stomp out a very important issue, did you? My name is Scarlett Bobo, but my loved ones know me as Matthew Cameron, and I'm a full-time drag artist. Today, I am lucky to be surrounded by my incredible family, which too many aren't able to say. My mother, Angel, my sister, Christina, my Aunt Kim, as well as so many of my dearest friends, and most of all, my loving partner, Peter. Apart from the glamorous, dazzling, and wacky characters I play on television or in venues around the world, I also deal with the very real struggles of homophobia, hate crimes, and acts of purposeful intent to intimidate and now disqualify who I am as a person and what I do as a job. I contacted Kristyn Wong-Tam's office where I met with them and Marit Stiles to discuss these horrifying bills that are being passed around the United States and how it is rapidly starting to affect our communities right here in our backyards. These threats and intimidation tactics are very real and happening all around us to people we love and care about. Even in recent weeks, I myself have been victim to hate crimes and hate speech. I'm a professional drag queen who loves what I do more than anything in the entire world. Drag is all about spreading love and acceptance and allows people to feel empowered and special. Drag artists and trans people have an inherent right to live freely and authentically in their truth. Everyone wants and deserves to feel safe and valued in their work. That is why these recent acts of organized protests and hate speech need to be halted and condemned immediately. Queer businesses are failing due to these acts of hate. Windows are being smashed, property is being damaged, queer families are being targeted, our ally families are being harassed by these protesters. Queer hate crimes have skyrocketed since recent anti-2S LGBTQIA+ bills have been introduced in the US. Drag artists are becoming afraid to go to work. Venues and bars fear protests will occur during drag events, resulting in loss of revenue and unnecessary added costs. Trans people are being told that they need to be eradicated from this world. We are being forced into fear, and we cannot let fear win. We will not let fear win. A world without trans people has never existed. A world without drag has never existed, and it never will. Queer people have always been here amongst us. They are our coworkers, they are our brothers, our sisters, they are our mothers, our fathers, they are our families. Drag is art, drag is culture, drag is educational, drag is creative, drag is comedy, but drag is not a crime. My name is Scarlett Bobo, and thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much to our remarkable speakers, to our leader, Marit Stiles, who has been steadfast in her support for the 2S LGBT community. She's never wavered when I said we need help. She stepped up right away and said, how can I help? How can she help? Scarlett, to you and to Crystal, thank you. Thank you for being so brave and sharing your truth and actually leading us into this conversation to the point that we've now have a plan and a solution in place. It's not my bill, it's not the NDP's bill, it's their bill. And we are asking the Ford government to support this community and their bill. We'd like to open this up now to members of the media if they have any questions, and please direct your questions to the individual that you would like to have the answers coming from.
I wonder about the effectiveness of this idea. Having artists apply to the Attorney General to set up a temporary exclusion zone, is that practical when you're doing so many performances a month or a year? Is that something you, maybe Crystal or Bobo could talk about? Would you really be phoning or emailing the Attorney General every time you are going to have a performance to ask for this?
Before they answer that, I just want to clarify. There will be a whole, just like any other threat that happens in community, there is law enforcement that's monitoring, there is activity that takes place on social media, there are local representatives that speak up, and including us at the House, as well as the community members. So it's not necessarily that someone has to submit an application. It is active monitoring to track where the hate is. And this is, the hate is being perpetuated from groups of individuals who are connected and know each other. The police know who they are. They just need extra tools to deal with the crime that's coming forward. Can I invite you to answer those questions as well? Maybe add to it? Right here is the microphone, yeah.
So in answer to that for you, right now, every time I go into a different community, I have to call the police and report what's going on. This takes days and lots of time, and I have to relive every trauma every single time, go through every email with them, and I'm doing this repeatedly to the point that now I don't do these shows because of how traumatic it is. So I think this would actually stop that whole issue of spending 4 days talking to police officers and going into constant rooms and talking about what has happened to me, even though it's the same people that are targeting all the same shows.
So, if it's the same people, and you know who they are, is there a bill that could then perhaps target the root cause of this rather than, and no offense, but is this a Band-Aid, like a temporary safety zone, but don't you want to get to the root of the problem and deal with that right then and there?
So to me, it depends on the community. So in this area, there's a certain group of people that come out. Now, as soon as you step a little bit further, it's led by somebody there, but it's all different people that come out. So I don't think it would help to a degree, but I think it still wouldn't help completely. Like, this isn't going to help over in Napanee, because these people from here don't travel to Napanee, but the person will lead them to tell them that I'm going there.
Do you worry that this could tease the protesters? You know, having a bill with this type of wording, could it just simply encourage them to, you're telling me that I can't protest, I'm going to go protest even more?
Cynthia, to your point about specifically, is this a Band-Aid solution? The bill is written in a way that allows us to have a two-pronged solution. One is the immediate safety zone that the AG, the Attorney General, can enforce. Then secondly is to create an advisory committee of our community members to come up with the government in partnership a anti-hate strategy that is then consistently monitored for implementation with goals that have to be met. So we know we don't have a one-size-fits-all solution. That's why the bill is written in a way that allows us immediate response and then a longer-term strategy to deal with broad hate. And with respect to your question about inflaming, right, about bringing out more protesters, I think, staying quiet and doing nothing is not the right response. I think, if anything, the community members have been struggling on their own. They've been talking to one another. And, when Marit and I went out to Hamilton, we also did some back-channeling work about calling the city council, the mayor in Hamilton, to let them know what are they doing. We shouldn't have to do that for every single drag performance. And I think, if anything, we need to see the community respond, and that is our response. If Doug Ford and the Conservative government said something to condemn that hatred actively, if they got behind this plan and said that we're going to create these safety zones for the community that's under attack, that sends an even louder message, a much louder message to those anti-2S LGBTQ extremists.
Mean an increase in police presence at those events?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that's always going to be the right response. I would say that the Attorney General will simply create a zone that means that anybody crossing that zone that's distributing hate propaganda, that's propagating hate speech, they are going to be in contradiction of that law. And then the police can step in. But we don't need a wall of police officers surrounding these events. It can also be very intimidating. And I think it's also very costly and unsustainable at the end of the day.
Kristyn, do you not think it's a slippery slope to restrict a demonstration as much as most people may disagree with what those demonstrators are saying?
We actually did, so I hear you loud and clear on that. One thing that was really important for us is to make sure we balance the right to protest and the protection of individuals from hate speech, hate propaganda, and language that fuels hatred and violence. So in that case, if we have to evaluate it that way, keeping communities safe is important. People are allowed to protest. They are not allowed to intimidate, nor are they allowed to distribute hate propaganda. They should not be inciting violence. That's all set out in the criminal code. We just need to be more specific that they cannot do it to this community.
I'd like to hear from an artist, whoever wants to speak, about this government and most governments routinely reject private members' bills. I think the likelihood of this passing is probably on the low side. If the government does decide to not pass this bill, what do you think that says to the community?
Well, I think that says to the community that we don't have the faith in us, and the community doesn't have the faith in the government to protect us. We need something to say that we are being looked at and we are being treated as equals just like everybody else. I am getting very tired of being worried about going to and from a bar without getting beaten up or getting yelled at or getting things thrown at me or getting screamed at. So many different ways of inciting hate every single time I have to go to work. And I love what I do, and I'm pretty sure every drag artist in the world loves what they do. And I think it's come to a time where we are, and this is an immediate threat right now. So if you're not going to help us in this threat right now, what are we supposed to do? What else can we do other than give into the fear and allow the protesters and allow these hateful people to win? And then we just give up. We just give up all of our jobs. We give up all of our spaces. We give up everything that we've worked for since the 80s. Every single thing that so many queer people have died for. We're just going to give all that up for just a few people that are going to throw hate at us. So I think it'd be pretty disappointing if this doesn't go through and the government doesn't do anything.
We are going to have to get going. Thank you, Jody. Of course, you know that we're all heading to question period. I'm going to invite our guests to come with us into the chambers. Marit and I have a few questions, as you can imagine, for today that specifically is going to ask the government what are they going to do and will they pass this bill. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Thank you.
Everybody.